to Brave the Wild. With me, your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Brave the Wild is available on thesportstuff.com, iTunes, Stitcher, and Double Twist. It's nice to be back on the regular schedule. Second week in a row of that, actually, believe it or not. Wild had a pretty yucky week here. I was hoping they're going to go 2-1. They wind up going 1-2, and boy, those two losses were losses. The Wild finally make a move at defensemen. A lot of us were wondering, what can they do? Obviously, the salary cap is so tight and all that. So, of course, we bring a familiar name back because he was kind of floating around. St. Louis was debating putting him on waivers, and they did. And he was a guy who went to St. Louis a couple of years ago, and the Wild brought him back. Yes, that's Nate Prosser. Trust the process with Nate Prosser. Yes. And yes, he's a right shot. As we're going to talk about defensemen extensively today and where the Wild maybe should have gone in the offseason. And, oh, Lord have mercy. And, of course, the forwards being a huge problem with the turnovers and the horrible losses and stuff. You can blame the defensemen, and there were a lot of mistakes defensively from the defensemen, but there were some horrible turnovers by just about everybody, especially the fourth line, particularly the Winnipeg game, the 7-2 loss. First, we'll start off with the St. Louis game, 6-3. Again, we're going to talk about the Wild almost more in general than just game. But, I say that every show, and I wind up staring at the game stuff too. But at the end of the day, well, I predicted Kyle Brodziak would score against us, and of course he did. And it was just an awful game. And yes, Devan Dubnyk was not sharp. He's not been sharp for a while and all that, and you go from 3 shutouts to 30 goals in 7 games. It's ridiculous, or at least it's just unbelievable how many goals you can allow in a period of time. Yep, 30 goals in 7 games, just horrendous. I mean, really? And 13 goals in 2 games. And well, one of them was Alex Stalock. Again, though, Alex Stalock did what he could. He missed a couple. It wasn't his best game and all that, but terrible turnovers by forwards, and of course defensemen being out of position time and time again. And my God, Kyle Quincy, there's a reason why the Winnipeg game was his last game, because he was just downright terrible, just stupid penalties. And he doesn't know what he went from a veteran who knew what he was doing to, I'm not sure what he's doing out there. Extremely strange and concerning. Charlie Coyle, I thought, had a very solid week. He added a shorthanded unassisted goal, forcing a turnover of getting the Wild finally in the game after the Wild trail 3-0 in the third period. They thought, okay, we're hanging in there, but we're down by 3. There's still plenty of time. The Wild make those comebacks very often. And you felt good when the game got to 4-3. So obviously, St. Louis, Kyle Brodziak scored early in that third period. Big shocker. And, of course, shorthanded. Of course, the Wild on the power play, and then you screw that up. But then the Wild had a couple of power play goals in the game, which would, of course, be answered by 2 power play goals from St. Louis. It's just, that's the kind of day it was. And Mike Yeo just owns this team. Extremely frustrating. Zach Mitchell with his 2nd goal of the year. Good for him. Absolutely. Playing with Daniel Winnick and Tyler Ennis. Oh, my God. That's your power play. But that shows you how poorly some of the other forwards in this team are playing. Zach Mitchell, Daniel Winnick, and Tyler Ennis on the power play. Just let that sink in and just sit there and stare at that and think about it. And wow, that sucks. Wow. Yeah. And just the options this team could have had in the offseason, certain things here and there. Some people like Daniel Winnick, some people don't. I appreciate what he brings. But again, I mean, he's a limited player. But how much can you complain about a guy making $600,000 at this stage? I mean, at least he's not making the $2.5 million, right? So look at it that way. Again, Kyle Quincy made $1.2 million. That was his salary. And then you look at other players. We'll talk about him in a second as we head into the third game. We'll wait for that as the change gets made there. But bottom line, the Wild lose 6-3 in a horrendous game in St. Louis. Again, Dubnyk not real sharp, this and that. Defensemen, I mean, defensive pairing is confusing at times. I mean, Riley and Olofsson, when they're together, I mean, they didn't look good in this game. And, I mean, you have back and forth situations. I mean, luckily, you get a chance to play those guys now without looking over their shoulder, thinking Kyle Quincy's coming, that type of situation. Oh, I mean, it just leaves you at a loss. In this case, Kyle Quincy was out there. Riley was the one scratched for this game. It was Quincy and Olofsson just kind of, boy, a tough situation there. And of course, the defensive pairings back and forth over and over again. And then ultimately, you end up losing Jared Spurgeon for a while, which will be over 2 weeks now as the updates have come out. Jared Spurgeon playing in his last game. So then you head into the Winnipeg game, and right away they say, oh, Jared Spurgeon won't be playing coming into the game. And it's like, oh boy, here we go. And here we did go indeed. A 7-2 loss to the Winnipeg Jets.
I mean, that's freaking awful.
Just freaking awful, yeah, to say the least. Really, yeah, 7-2 to the Winnipeg Jets. Sure, they've been playing better and everything, but this was ridiculous. Of course, November the 27th, Monday, November the 27th, just north of the border here, not that far away, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Yuck, just yuck, like really? But Alex Stalock's in net. He's sharper than Devin Dubnyk lately. It didn't matter. I mean, you know, when you're turning the puck over and guys are out of position to the level they were in this game, it really didn't matter. And that fourth line was freaking horrendous. I mean, Matt Cullen, Foligno, and Stewart, sure, they paired up for a goal and they put the Wild up 2-0. And the Wild actually led 2-0 in this game. It's like you look at it and you can't believe it. The Wild actually were leading in this game, and I still remember the positive feeling like, wow, we're going to be all right. And next thing you know, just 4 minutes later, the game was tied. And the floodgates never closed the rest of the way. Again, 7 unanswered goals by the Winnipeg Jets. There was a point in this game where inexplicably, a 41-year-old veteran, Matt Cullen, I'm sure a lot of you have heard it, a lot of your diehard fans that listen to the radio, and obviously you watch the game too, I would hope. Just Matt Cullen skated behind the net. I mean, really? And that was on Perreault's goal. That's what made it 4-2. Skated behind the net, and you're just staring and like, why would he do that though? Like, you just screened yourself. Why would he do that? And I don't know. It's like sometimes when you get frustrated, maybe you don't trust other players on your line. You don't trust some of the young defensemen out there, which always tend to get beat on this team anyway. Was it a lack of trust? Is it just the IQ of the team has gotten so low it's rubbing off, or what the hell? Because Matt Cullen, that's not Matt Cullen. I mean, it was like his evil twin or his stupid twin. Matt Cullen doesn't make plays like that, but he did. And he has not been good most of the season. His defense has not been the same. He's been an ever reliable player who could be on any special team unit, of course, power play, penalty kill, and 5-on-5 or 4-on-4, whatever. He'd been a valuable guy. Now, boy, it's just the whole morale of the club clearly sinking in a huge, huge matter. Now, of course, Chris Stewart finally scoring again for the first time in forever, actually scoring his first goal in a while. Fourth line. Matt Cullen getting his 4th assist of the year. It's about time, right? And Foligno's been tacking on assists here and there, so he's actually had 9 points on the year, if you can believe it. And the Goose got his first point of the season. The Goose, Gustav Olsson, on Jason Zucker's early goal, which is extremely exciting. Team leading 13th goal of the season. But then again, 7 goals in a row and one mistake after another. Kyle Quincy looked like a guy who doesn't belong in the NHL, a guy who maybe doesn't belong in the AHL. I mean, really? And it's just situations with the salary cap, right shot, left shot, this, that, and the frustration continues there. Matt Dumba pulled a Randy Moss also at the end of the first period, squirting one of the Winnipeg Jets with a water bottle. He pulled a Randy Moss. Randy freaking Moss. Back in 99, I believe that was the St. Louis Rams playoff game. He squirted the referee, I believe. Yep, when the Vikings were getting blown out by the St. Louis Rams after a positive first half. Kind of similar to that game in a way, where the Vikings gave, 50 points in that freaking game. 50 freaking points. I mean, my God, your great-grandmother could play better defense than that. And I think your great-grandmother could play better defense than the Wild did in this game. I mean, try as he might, the effort, the energy of Alex Stalock, it didn't matter. I mean, the guy could have killed himself out there with how hard he was trying to stop the bullets coming his way. It was one golden opportunity for Winnipeg, just handed to them after another on a silver platter. And boy, did they dine in. And there's a reason why they're in first place right now. And there's a reason why the Wild are not even close to first place. We're lucky the Colorado Avalanche have dropped off and returned to their rightful place in the division. But Nathan MacKinnon's still one of the leading scorers in the NHL, though. So good for him, because he got the Player of the Month. How about that, Nathan MacKinnon? Good for him. As much as we hate the Avalanche and hate Nathan MacKinnon, well, we love him on our fantasy team or whatever it is, or and good on him for having a nice comeback type of season. But that cross-checking penalty by Kyle Quincy, and he couldn't believe the call, and it's like, yeah, okay, it was pretty stupid. I mean, really? It was just no point. what was the point of it? I mean, he wasn't even anywhere near the puck. There was no reason for it, like stupid, and that helped get Winnipeg going. Overall, just a yucky son of a biscuit of a game. Same group out there defensively. No Mike Riley or Quincy. You ended up bringing Ryan Murphy up for Jared Spurgeon, who is, of course, a right shot. And now we can talk about the right, left, and the reason why Soucy and Seeler aren't up here. I mean, we've wanted Soucy so badly. Nick Seeler and then Soucy, of course. And, of course, yes, he's our friend Carson Soucy, who played for the Duluth Blue. I keep calling them Blue Devils, the Duluth Bulldogs. I'm never going to get that Blue Devil thing out of my system. Maybe I'll just call them Blue Dogs, I guess. They're going to be like the Blue Ox, but they're Blue Dogs? Nah, that doesn't work either. But, yeah, Ryan Murphy, who I talked about on the last show, how he'd been emerging and been kind of getting caught up back to where he was hopefully supposed to be once upon a time. As, you know, he was drafted by Carolina. 12th overall in 2011, Ryan Murphy. A lot of positive feelings for him coming in to the draft that year. A lot of people felt good about him. He's from Ontario. Aurora, Ontario. 24 years old, so still got time. Not the biggest guy in the world, but again, the reason why he got called up and not Carson Soucy or Nick Seeler, well, I mean, is because he's a right shot. But also, the reason why Menel didn't get called up is because, well, obviously Murphy's been in the NHL. He's had extensive time in the league. He's had some 10-point seasons here and there. He had a 13-point season in 14-15 in only 37 games. So he is a point producer. It's just his inconsistencies are why Ryan Murphy has not lived up to being a first-round pick thus far. But again, there's still time. He'll probably never become what some people thought he was going to be. Because some people thought he was going to be just a stud. I mean, he had 79 points in the OHL one of those years as a defenseman, 48, 54 points. Just very productive offensive defenseman, trying to be like the next Larry Murphy out there, maybe. Larry Murphy, right? Ryan Murphy, Larry Murphy. Mm-hmm. Not sure there's a relation. I don't think there is. He doesn't look anything like Larry Murphy. And if there is, I apologize. Maybe his uncle or something. Who knows? But Larry Murphy, the great defenseman for Calgary and St. Louis years ago. And Detroit, not Calgary. I'm thinking about Al McGinnis. I'm going crazy. Larry Murphy was with the Washington Capitals, the Minnesota North Stars, Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Detroit Red Wings. There we go. That makes more sense. Yep, Minnesota North Stars, who the North Stars traded for Jim Johnson. Yep, Jim Johnson. And Larry Murphy. Remember, what team was he on in the 91 Stanley Cup Finals? Was he on the North Stars or the Penguins? I think Larry Murphy was a little bit better than Jim Johnson. Yeah, that guy did nothing. Just he was like a fourth line nobody at best. I mean, he wasn't even Zach Mitchell. I mean, give me a break. I think Zach Mitchell is better than Jim Johnson, who traded away Larry Murphy, a Hall of Fame defenseman. Idiots. And that wasn't Lou Nanne. Lou Nanne was the one that acquired Larry Murphy for Dino Ciccarelli after that incident back in the late 80s. The pants down. Caught with his pants down. Literally. Oh, what's the point of this conversation? I apologize. So, yes, Larry, here we go. Ryan Murphy called up. More experienced than Menel, and I would have loved to see Menel, but of course, that's where things get interesting as well, because the Wild need that right shot defenseman. But right at the moment, well, Olofsson and Riley are both left shot, but you still have Spurgeon and Dumba, of course, they're on the right shot. Murphy right now is the third right shot. But things get interesting now. Nate Crosser has been brought in off of waivers as the Wild put Kyle Quincy onto waivers. And again, the situation as to why, like I just said, Soucy and Seeler are both left shot. And you already have Suter, Brody, and Olofsson left shot defensemen. And again, I guess at the moment, and Riley, of course, who has been playing on the right shot of late with Olofsson, and they looked okay. They looked better in that Golden Knights game. They looked better. Riley and Olofsson looked good. You moved Dumba up to the top pairing with Ryan Suter. They got scored on when they were out there, but it wasn't really their fault necessarily. It's just, one of the shots was far away, that type of situation. I can't really blame the pairing. I thought they looked okay out there. Like, Dumba was solid. Suter was... I don't know. Suter, I don't think he had his best game against the Golden Knights. But I thought Dumba looked a little better. You know, he's not perfect. He makes mistakes. He's slow to this, that. And then offensively, he's very aggressive. And I thought he looked solid out there. And good on him. He was able to factor in the scoring as we can get off this Winnipeg game as quickly as possible. But those are the situations. But the thing you come back with here, though, the situation with signing Kyle Quincy to hopefully get him to play right defenseman, and of course he was like not comfortable with it, didn't want to. There was some friction with him and Bruce Boudreau. That's another reason he was let go. But really, the 1.2 million, and then you sit back and look at this, and Christian Folin. Do you remember that name, Christian Folin, the guy who was pretty solid Swedish defenseman there? Or is he from Finland? Pardon me. he's Finnish. Pretty solid Finnish defenseman. He was paired up with Brodin at times last year, right? He's a right shot. And you could have just kept him for $800,000. $800,000 for Folin, who was a solid stay-at-home defenseman who didn't get you killed ever. The guy was always there. He was always solid. He wasn't perfect because there is no perfect defenseman. For less than $1 million, and you sell Kyle Quincy for over $1 million, when the guy was washed up, I mean completely washed up. That's something you just sit back, you think about that for a minute, you analyze it, and you're like what the hell were we thinking? Was he demanding $1.5 million or something, but then had to settle with LA? But that can't be possible because he was signed on the 1st of July. There was no wait. LA just scooped him right up. We can get this guy for $800,000. Get him, you know. I mean, so he's on the bottom pairing. So what? He's a very valuable defenseman in that sense as a bottom pairing. You're not counting on him to score, and he's not necessarily the superstar, you know, or even like a Willie Mitchell type of defenseman, you know, an anchor. Not a superstar, but a uber valuable defenseman who I'd love to have at least on our second pairing years ago. Now he's too old, unfortunately. Damn it. Now he's 40. But years ago, I would have loved to have him. But you have Christian Folin, $800,000. I mean, that would have filled your need right away. You wouldn't have to go pick up Prosser off of waivers. But you know what? Prosser is an upgrade over Quincy at this point, and he's resuming his role. He's the 7th defenseman when needed, of course. The other good news, now, of course, again, Carson, Soucy, and Seeler, they have every right to beat out Olofsson or Riley, and I think that possibility exists. At least for one of those two is probably going to make the team one of these days. And, of course, if anybody gets hurt, Suter, Brodin, which you hope don't, or Olofsson, or even Mike Riley, don't be surprised to see Soucy or Seeler called up. Riley is a left shot, but he has been playing right of late. So maybe Riley would get just replaced by a right shot anyway, but who knows at this stage. And, of course, Prosser would just go in right away, depending on how hurt somebody is. But if someone gets hurt or their play superly drops off from the left shot, you will see Soucy or Seeler. Right now, that's not the case. Like I said, Mennel, though, Brennan Mennel, Iowa, and of course we'll talk about them later too, but when we talk about the prospects, it's going to get interesting as well, of where there is a possible very exciting solution at the right shot defenseman in the system, and the way he's been playing for his college team of late. He's a guy I've been featuring lately. You could probably guess who it is, but I'll talk about him in segment number 2 when we talk about the prospects. But that's where things can possibly get exciting at a later date. Let's talk about the Vegas Knights game a little bit here. Dragging the segment a little longer, but I had a bit to say about the whole defenseman situation, and that's why that Soucy and Seeler have been stuck in the AHL at the moment, because, well, there's a lot of left shot defensemen, and that's kind of been a story for a while. Most NHLers shoot from the left side, even if they're right-handed. I would shoot from the right side, so there you go. But I'm 38, and let's just say I don't think I'm NHL material. I don't think so. Nice game by Eric Stahl. He did get an empty netter to get to the double-digit mark. He had his first goal, which proved to be the game winner. Fun game. Mike Riley with a wonderful pass over to Granlund with the one-timer. The Vegas Golden Knights hit the post 4 times in this game. And young Subban, the younger one, the younger brother of him being PK Subban, of course, Nashville Predators, the star defenseman to replace Ryan Suter and Shea Weber. Of course, Shea Weber off to the Montreal Canadiens. Yes, sir. And, of course, Stewart coming via free agency. Yeah. Okay. We're stuck with that salary cap until Hellfreed is over, by the way. But Malcolm Subban, he was pretty solid. Subban, pardon me, was very solid in the net. Good for him. There's another Carlson in the NHL, just like the star of the Ottawa Senators. This one's William Karlsson. So you got all these you got all these names here that are similar to others, and of course very familiar ones in James Neal, Eric Holla, and Alex Tuch. Those, of course, Minnesota ties. We all know that. James Neal, though, he's been a 20-goal scorer for 7 years in a row. He provides a lot of offense. Luckily, he wasn't able to score in this game. Eric Holla wasn't able to score. Alex Tuch played 18 minutes out there. Good for him. On the second line, good for Alex Tuch. Second line, first line at times, even on the power play a bit. He had a solid overall game. Only got 2 shots on net ultimately, though. Marchalt was very good in the game, 6 shots on goal. But again, so many posts hit, and luckily for Devin Dubnyk, the post is the goalie's best friend. Even Mr. Mikael Granlund, who finally opened the scoring late in the second period, he hit the post too, but it hit the correct side of the post, the left side in this case, on an awesome one-timer. Mike Riley with a Mikael Granlund-like pass over to him. That was really impressive, and I've liked Riley a lot more this year. He's a little bit more sure with the puck. That's the one thing. He gives up turnovers when he's not so sure with the puck at times. That's usually when you see the turnovers out of Mike Riley. But more solid, and you feel more confidence from him now, too. Like, he's probably not going to get scratched as much. And, he's doing okay on the right side there. Good for him, even though he's looked on as a left shot. He did a very good job out there against the Vegas Golden Knights. Maybe Mike Riley will be able to hang on this time around. Brayden McNabb, yep, that was a bummer. First goal of his season there. And Matteo with his first assist. And then Marchalt, who kept knocking on the door. He finally was able to score. Ultimately, his 9th goal of the season. And then Brodin, it looked like it was tipped in from Niederreiter, but it never was. It was actually tipped in from, I forgot the guy. Who. It was tipped in from obviously a Las Vegas defender. Which one was it? It was, I think it was, it was Bizza, if I remember correctly. Yep, it was tipped in. Well, it happens. Thank you for the tip. Thanks for the tip, right? That's what you could say. Tipped upward past Subban. Good for us. And then a great pass from Dumba. Actually, it was a shot on net. And then it's just a quick, easy little tip in from Mr. Eric Stahl. And then he was able to just put up the perfect little shot. Barely just kind of gently slid it down the ice. Was able to get the empty net shot. Mikael Granlund could have ended the game a little bit earlier. Was he able to, if he actually took the shot, but he didn't for some strange reason, which was mysterious for all of us. But then, just the accuracy of these guys, it's just insane. You just realize how skilled these guys are. It's crazy. Charlie Coyle, I thought, had an awesome game overall. I've just been very impressed with what he's been able to do. He didn't get any shots on net, but he was physical and he was solid. He did shoot the puck, and he did set up other players at numerous occasions, as he's been the third-line center for pretty much the whole time he's been in there, occasionally playing a little wing with special teams or different situations coming in, maybe in the middle of line changes, stuff like that, when you can't do a complete line change. But an overall, not so bad game. The defensive pairings of late have been Matt Dumba, Ryan Studer, of course, Brodin on the left, Murphy on the right, Olofsson on the left, Riley on the right. And they did a good job in this game. It was just an overall team effort. Dubnyk was awesome. Dubnyk had a spectacular save after he gave up what you think would be a good rebound, not for the Vegas Knight to score, but for to get the puck away so you could keep the clock moving, and you don't have to have a dangerous face-off, which could lead to a quick goal. That type of situation. That's usually why goalies don't always like to freeze the puck, but. And then he made a spectacular save with a stick, just insane. And Ryan Murphy saved the game as well. A unbelievable last-second dive and stop with his stick. Literally saved a goal, which would have tied the game up, and things could have been quite different. You never know. Maybe the Vegas Golden Knights get to the shootout and win the game somehow, because things just do not go our way. Lucky bounce, this or that. But there it was, Ryan Murphy. Looking like he belongs the last couple of games here. He's only been on the Wild for 2 games, but he's done a very good job. You're not seeing mistakes. He's aggressive offensively as well. And he's been solid, stay-at-home, solid defenseman. And then Mike Riley and Gustav Olofsson have been good. Matt Dumba, 26 minutes out there with Ryan Suter. Crazy, only 30 seconds less than Ryan Suter. And I thought he looked pretty good out there. Give him credit. And, of course, very aggressive. 6 shots on goal. Ultimately, keep peppering whoever that goaltender is. Matt Dumba's got a really nice shot. And he's also got that crisp. He's also very capable of making a very crisp, accurate pass as well, as long as he just doesn't make a dumb decision. Matt Dumba can be pretty good, and you seem like you put him in that role, and you put him with a guy like Ryan Suter, you feel he feels more comfortable out there and more confident. And this is something that Bruce Boudreau should have done earlier, and it's frustrating because maybe you should have Spurgeon with Brodeen or even not Ryan Murphy, or even Olofsson, something like that. Maybe you want to give Olofsson more time out there and help him build some confidence. Stuff like that. I mean, why do you have to have the top guys together all the time? You want to split them up on occasion. Maybe have the other one on the second pairing, and maybe you don't have to have Suter out there for 27 minutes. Have him out there for 23, 22. And then you have Spurgeon, 23, 22. Well, gosh darn it. And then it's simpler that way. Guys aren't gossed, like Mr. Mike Yo would always say about Suter was gossed. And yes, that's an ongoing bit on this show. So that was an interesting, fun segment. Only 3 games, but there was so much to talk about there. That fourth line, though, whew, I mean, they had a nasty week. They were better though in this game. Nobody's perfect. It wasn't the best game overall for. I mean, it wasn't a perfect game for anybody necessarily, but a fun, positive type of game. Hopefully, the Wild can bring this momentum into St. Louis one more time. As the Wild now will be hosting the St. Louis Blues coming up. Whew, that's going to be fun, right? So we'll talk about that in segment number 2. Let's pass out the awards here. It's going to be kind of tough. One award, one demerit, of course. The Mike Modano Award for this week. Eric Stahl had a nasty turnover, and he had a nasty turnover in the Winnipeg game. Even in the St. Louis game, again, nobody had a perfect week, a great week. I think Matt Cullen, though, I'm going to give Matt Cullen the James Shepard Memorial. Yeah, it's a guy. I'm going to give it to him. I thought he had a very, very rough week, and he's the captain of that fourth line, and he didn't look good out there all week for the most part. He was okay against Vegas, though, so we'll take that at least because of the Vegas Golden Knights. Matt Cullen will be getting the James Shepard Memorial. The Mike Modano Award, it's tough. And you could give the whole thing to the fourth line, frankly, for this last week. It was a terrible week for them, even though they did factor in one of the goals. I've been impressed with Zach Mitchell, but he's not a Mike Modano Award type of guy. Ryan Murphy, just the last 2 games, I thought he was solid enough. He's almost up there. I'm having a hard time who to give it to right now. I'm going to give it to Granlund and Stahl. I think they both had a very good week. Granlund, again, he's going to get another one. He wasn't perfect, but he was solid, and he was a factor, this and that. So Granlund and Stahl will get the Mike Modano Award for this week. So we'll take a quick break, preview 3 games, and talk a bit more about the prospects after this. Here on Brave the Wild, second segment. Let's preview the next 3 games here. Oh, goody. We get to play the St. Louis Blues. Oof. Oh. I'm going to look at some of the numbers on the current club really quick, though. Just a quick update on points and everything. Eric Stahl leads the way with 23 points in 25 games. 13 goals for Zucker, 21 total points. Granlund at 16 in 20 games. He's at a pretty strong pace. Of course, Spurgeon's going to be missing time. That sucks, but hey, keep it up, the current 6 out there. Keep it up. And, of course, number 7, Nate Prosser. He'll be making a debut at some point. But, I say leave it alone for the moment. Nate Prosser's resuming his role as a 7th defenseman. But, the good thing about Nate Prosser is he doesn't get you killed. Stewart's climbing his way up to 9 points now because he was at 8 for, eternity. So, finally, Chris Stewart scored after being lackadaisical defensively out there on the back check the last week here. Just awful. And he's been weak all season, quite frankly. That's a guy, hey, there's players down in the AHL dying to come up. We'll talk about them in a little while. And I think maybe Justin Kloos, Chris Stewart, Justin Kloos, Chris Stewart. Yeah, somebody like that who's been doing a hell of a job down there. And, of course, luckily, Zach Mitchell has had his shot right now, and he's looking okay. Suter's been stuck at 14 for a while. Niederreiter's at 12. He didn't score at all this last week, unfortunately, after a red-hot week and a half stretch there. Coyle's at 6 points in 9 games. He's been good. He's been very good. He was a strong candidate for the Mike Modano Award. In fact, I almost should have given it to him. Shoot. Almost, Maybe you could even include him, but 3 guys for the Mike Modano Award, that's kind of goofy, but, yeah. I'm going to take Eric Stahl out and give it to Coyle, because he's been better than Eric Stahl. So, a little addendum and errata there, you could call it. I don't want to talk about the St. Louis Blues. I'm sick of them. I'm sick of the St. Louis Blues. I hate them so much. Do we have to talk about them? Because just don't feel like it, right? Yeah, they just beat us 6-3. I just talked about them last week. So just same thing as last week, right? Okay. Yeah, they're in first place, and I don't want to deal with it, right? 5 o'clock, kind of a, heading into dinner time, on your Saturday night. Hopefully the Wild don't make you not want to eat. But I don't know. It's a home game. That's helpful. Will Carter Hutton be in net? Probably not. The Wild did a good job against him last year from what I remember. They beat up on Carter Hutton pretty good. Jake Allen, yeah, we beat him in the playoffs in 2016? No, 2015. It's been that long already. Wow. Yep, same guys, obviously. Kyle Brodziak always seems to find his way to score against the Wild, and it's really annoying. Obviously, Paul Stastny, like I talked about, he's finally been healthy. He's played all 25 games. When's the last time you could say that about Paul Stastny? Amazingly, though, the St. Louis Blues, they took on the California Curse. That's what I'm afraid of coming into this week as well. The California Curse. The Wild never play well against the Kings and the Anaheim Ducks on the road. Sometimes the Kings. The Ducks, well, at least we have a coach that knows them well, so it helps. In the past, when the Mike Yeo, Todd Richards, don't even get me started. Ugh. And then, of course, Mr. Jacques Lemaire. Jacques Lemaire out there, we worry. When we go to sleep, we worry. When we dream about being worried. So when we get up, we worry, I love that guy. I screwed that up, but that's okay. Vladimir Tarasenko, 28 points on the season. Believe it or not even the leading goal scorer, because it's been Jaden Schwartz who reminded us how good he is. 32 points on the season. He's on pace for about 90 points to 100 points on the year. Don't know if that's going to keep up, but I don't know. St. Louis Blues, losers of 3 out of their last 5. So come on, guys. They got shut out by Nashville the game before Minnesota. Of course, we were their last win. They crushed Edmonton, they crushed Minnesota, but then they lose to Nashville, Anaheim, and Los Angeles. Back to Minnesota today, December the 2nd. Minnesota's got to make this statement. This is a statement type of game. You're going on the West Coast. You want to be hopeful the Wild can come out of this week 2-1. Will the Wild go to the West Coast and win? Well, yeah. So you head to San Jose also. So you start Southern Cal, head to Northern Cal, and then slide up into the mountain zone into Calgary, Alberta on Tuesday the 12th, which there might be a snow-nami around that time in this area, according to Dan Barrero. Snow-nami, that's what he calls those. I'm getting really weird here. It's like the Wild, they've been so far inferior to St. Louis this season, so far inferior to Winnipeg. Then we beat up on Nashville. It's only 2 points behind St. Louis, 3 points behind Winnipeg. I mean, why can't this team be slightly more consistent? Like their defense was bad as the Minnesota Timberwolves like last week until the Las Vegas Golden Knights game. And I do trust momentum here. I think I have a sneaky feeling the Wild are going to win this game 3-2, 4-2, empty net situation, something along those lines. Devin Dubnyk will more than likely be in net. You saw stronger defense. You saw Dubnyk being much more sharp. He wasn't giving up stupid rebounds. Now, Subban gave up that rebound again to Eric Stahl, which was helpful. Not PK, but of course Malcolm Subban. Maybe one day they'll play together. You never know. PK Subban to the Vegas Golden Knights. That would be more cool than, of course, Malcolm going to the Nashville Predators. I'd like to see PK on the Golden Knights, actually. That'd be kind of cool. But we'll worry about that when the time comes. I'm going all over the place. I apologize. I've got a sneaky feeling, though, that the Wild are going to bring a little bit of that momentum in. And if they don't, well, that's quite a shame. Because those 6 defensemen looked really good, I mean, they weren't perfect. Of course, Suter and Dumba weren't perfect out there, but Dumba looked really solid. He really did. He looked like a different guy when he's playing with Ryan Suter versus, even a Marco Scandella. As good as Scandella was, Dumba, it just seemed like he was reckless and stupid. When he's with Suter, it seems like there's a little more control out there. He's probably a little bit more worried to make a mistake, yet he can be more aggressive offensively at the same time because he knows Ryan Suter is a steady, solid defenseman, obviously, to go along with Suter's offensive capabilities. I like that combination, and Boudreau has said he wants to keep them together. So I just have this sneaky feeling the Wild are going to turn the corner a little bit this week. I've got that feeling. I think the Wild are going to win 3-2 over the St. Louis Blues. Again, it's hopeful. Things have not gone well with Yo and the Wild so far. It's a hopeful type of thing. I mean, sadly, this is probably the most likely game the Wild would lose. Of course, Anaheim is a tough one. It always is. But, I mean, there is that Boudreaux connection, which makes things interesting. But I have a sneaky feeling the Wild will continue the momentum here and win a 3-2 hockey game over the St. Louis Blues. Most likely guy to score for Minnesota in this game is going to be Charlie Coyle. He's gonna get his second goal of the season against the St. Louis Blues. I just have that vibe. Los Angeles Kings on December the 1st, Tuesday, December the 1st. This is going to be an interesting game. Will Darcy Kemper be in net, or will Jonathan Quick be in net? Remember last year we never even saw the guy. It was Peter Boudiage most of the season until he got traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning later in the year. Boy. Well, Jonathan Quick, I mean, he's back in the swing of things. He is back, and Darcy Kemper has been spectacular in the 7 games he's been out there. He started 5 games. He's 3-0 is Darcy Kemper. 1 shutout on the season. Goals against average 1.84. Save percentage about 94%. Jonathan Quick save percentage about 93. Goals against average just above 2.5 or 2.25. Pardon me. Outstanding 2.27. 12-8 on the season is Jonathan Quick for a very resurgent Los Angeles Kings team. A lot of us thought the Kings were going to drop off. The Vegas Knights are now in second place, but they have 2 games in hand. Again, that's they're 4 points behind the Kings in second place, but again, 2 games in hand. The San Jose Sharks have 3 games in hand. We always like to talk about that in the NHL. Anze Kopitar leading the way, 28 points. Dustin Brown, who I don't remember him being this solid of a scorer. I remember him being more of a physical guy, but 21 points in 26 games. He's been pretty solid for them. There's a quick drop up after that. Drew Doughty, obviously, well, he's one of the great defensemen in the NHL. He's always been there. Marian Gaborik has only played in 4 games, yet he's managed to get 2 goals and 2 assists in that time. So productive in the 4 games he's played, and that's about it. The former mentioned Marian Gaborik. Remember that guy. So, obviously, okay team. Michael Camilleri, he's been all over the league. The Kings and the Calgary Flames, the Montreal Canadiens, the New Jersey Devils. He's been all over the NHL everywhere but Minnesota pretty much. He provides a little bit of that veteran stability and that scoring capability from the third line at this point. But watch him score against us. Why do I have a sneaky, strange feeling Darcy Kemper is going to be in net? But then again, maybe they don't want that. Maybe the Wild would pepper the crap out of him and beat him. The Wild would figure it out. Recently, the Los Angeles Kings beat the St. Louis Blues 4-1. That's pretty impressive, actually. So, I don't know. And the Kings had won 4 in a row. They'll be playing the Blackhawks before they play the Minnesota Wild. Maybe they'll keep that streak alive as the Blackhawks are right down with the Wild there, trying to knock on the wild card door, believe it or not. And that's about it. Chicago really having a rough go. The Kings lost to Arizona. Out of all the games the Los Angeles Kings played, they lost to the Arizona Coyotes. What the hell is that? Then they beat Anaheim, Detroit, Washington on the road, and St. Louis on the road. What the heck? Yet you lose to the Arizona Coyotes. Okay. Talk about inconsistent. This is a winnable game, but the way the Kings are playing right now, I don't like it. And if Jonathan Quick's in net, I don't like it either. I think if Darcy Kemper's in net, that could be the secret to the Wild victory. And it could be Darcy Kemper coming back to the pack. It's like, put it this way, if Darcy Kemper's in net, like if the Kings get creative and put Darcy Kemper in there to see what happens, Darcy Kemper's either going to get a shutout in that game or the Wild are going to crush him, like 4 or 5 goals. But I'm guessing it's going to be Jonathan Quick because he's one of the best goalies on the planet. And his numbers show it, and good on him for being healthy again, as he missed pretty much the whole year last year after the first game of the season, and that was it. I mean, season opener, and then he never came back. Did Jonathan Quick. Oh, boy, it's a tough one. I'm going to pick a loss. I think the Los Angeles Kings beat the Minnesota Wild, unfortunately. This might be a stay-lock game. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, just for the sake of mixing it up. But if Dubnyk is that good and you get an amount of days off like that, maybe you keep him in there. If Dubnyk is red hot and helps the Wild beat St. Louis, like, put it this way, if Dubnyk gets beat badly today, Stalock for sure will be in net against the Kings on Tuesday. 2 days off, Sunday, Monday, off. You will see Mr. Staylock in that. That one will be on NBC Sports. That's the Tuesday night special, so very cool. 9 p.m. Love those West Coast games on NBC Sports Network. Oh, I love those games. They're so fun. Honest to God, I'm not being sarcastic at all. I love it. But I'm going to pick the Kings to beat the Wild, unfortunately. It's going to be low scoring. This is more of a defensive team, obviously. Good goaltending. 3-2 win type of situation. Maybe it goes to shootout or overtime, something like that. But I think the Kings beat the Wild 3-2. Most likely guy to score will be, for the Minnesota Wild, of course, will be Eric Stahl. Will get his 11th goal of the season if he didn't score against St. Louis. 11th goal of the season by Eric Stahl against the Los Angeles Kings. Now we quickly shift over to the Anaheim Ducks. Friday the 8th on the road, of course. Staying on the West Coast, the Wild will also head north to play the San Jose Sharks on Sunday. But we won't be previewing that one at this stage, as the Wild will stay in the West Coast, or the Western Conference anyway, for quite a while. And then finally head to host the Toronto Maple Leafs on Thursday, the 14th. Anaheim Ducks, I think the Wild can beat them. They're not doing that well this year. And, of course, you have the familiarity with Bruce Boudreau and the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim Ducks at this stage, only 500, 26 points on the year, 11-11. And their goaltending situation stinks, quite frankly. Jonathan Gibson, up-and-coming stud goalie, and he stinks this year. Goals against average, about 3. Save percentage is kind of high, actually. It's not bad, considering he's faced a ton of shots. The defense in front of Gibson has not been good, so it's kind of like Dubnyk's situation in a sense. The Anaheim Ducks have lost 4 out of their last 5, yet they beat the St. Louis Blues. What the hell is up with that? So the Blues have had some weird losses of late. The Ducks are having trouble scoring, big time. 1 goal against Winnipeg, 1 against L.A. They got peppered and destroyed by the Chicago Blackhawks, 7-3. They get 3 against St. Louis. They finally get 3 goals against somebody, and they beat the Blues. And then a 4-2 loss to a good Columbus team. Eventually, they'll play the Wild after playing Nashville, Vegas, Ottawa, and then you play the Wild. Familiar guys, of course, Jacob Silverberg, Corey Perry, Andrew Cogliano, a lot of like that guy. Lindholm, Hampus Lindholm. But a lot of these guys, there's been a huge drop-off. They do not score at all. Their leading score is 18 points a game. That's not the worst thing in the world. But, I mean, the Wild are outscoring them big time. Corey Perry's way down, only 17 points. Cogliano's third on the team with 13. So they're giving up goals, and they're not scoring. I absolutely think the Wild should win this game. This is a very winnable game. I think the Wild win this one like 3-1, 4-2, something like that. I feel positive about this one. Devin Dubnyk more than likely will be in net in this game. More than likely. I'm picking a solid game for Dubnyk. And again, put it this way, if the Wild lose this game, that's a stinger. I mean, you've got to beat this team. They are going downhill. The Ducks are really dropping off. I think they're at that stage where they're going to be rebuilding soon. I think a lot of their star players are getting old or just kind of getting past their prime. You always have the salary cap issues. And Gibson has not been good, and the guys in front of him have not been good either. So Minnesota should win the game. Final score 4-2. Most likely guy to score against the Anaheim Ducks is going to be Matt Dumba. Matt Dumba is going to score a goal against the Ducks. Old Darkwing Duck himself, Matt Dumba. I don't know why I think of Darkwing Duck and Matt Dumba, but it was something he did a couple years ago against the St. Louis Blues, and I still think about it. It was some move he did where it looked like it was Darkwing Duck grabbing his cape or whatever. So Darkwing Dumba, who makes will score a goal in the game. And he's been solid this season. His offense has been catching up, has been Matt Dumba. So Minnesota wins 4-2 over the Ducks. I'm actually almost leaning towards 3-1, but it'll be a 2-goal victory, a solid win for the Minnesota Wild. And a 2-1 week. Maybe you lose to St. Louis, but I'm pretty sure the Wild lose to the Kings, but beat the Ducks. The Wild will beat the Ducks. The Ducks. And again, if they don't, that's a crappy loss. Let's look at the prospects, if humanly possible. In Iowa, starting things out, Pat Cannone, Kyle O'Reilly, career minor leaguers leading the team down there, but Kyle Rouse had a very strong couple weeks after coming back from injury. Started off the season hurt, and he's just been on a tear. 12 points in the 17 games. Justin Kluse added an assist last night. He'd been on fire for a while and quieted down. He's at 12 points in 21 games. And remember, Ryan Murphy was on a tear. He got all the way up to 11 points in the 18 games he had played down there before getting called up to Minnesota. Good for him. Sam Manaz keeps adding assists here and there, goals here and there. He's now at double-digit points in the 15 games he's played. He also started out the season hurt. Mario Lucia finally got his 5th point. He finally got his 4th assist last night. For the first time in weeks. About a month, Mario Lucia finally got his first point. And, of course, he'd been out for a while as well. Carson Soucy and Seeler added a point the last week as well. They're both at 4 points on the season. Those are the two guys we all want, those left-shot defensemen. And Yul Eriksson Ek has been like a freaking Mario Lemieux down there. 5 points in 5 games. He's been outstanding at the time he's been down there. He's been scoring goals and getting assists. And Luke Cunnin got his first assist since being sent down last night. He'd been scoreless in the first 3 games he had returned to the Iowa Wild. Remember, he started off with 4 games with Iowa at the beginning of the year. He scored 3 points in those 4 games and then had been quiet upon getting sent down there of late. Alex Grant has emerged as well a bit. He's a right shot defenseman as well, but he's much older. 28 points. He was a 4th round pick by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Just had a cup of coffee with the Ducks and the Arizona Coyotes. Never played for the Pittsburgh Penguins, so I kind of see him as more of a career minor leaguer. But maybe you give him a shot if need be at the right defenseman at some point. Right now it's Ryan Murphy and eventually Brendan Mennel. He is now at 9 points. He tacked on an assist last night as well on the empty net goal by Christoph Berchi, who's been really picking it up of late, as you've heard interviews with the coach and such. He's at 9 points in the 20 games he's played. He had 2 goals last night, so good on him, Christoph Berchi. He's been picking up in the scoring, but also they've been saying how he's been very solid. He was a 6th round pick from the Wild a couple years back, and he got a cup of coffee with Minnesota the last couple of years. He played 3 games in 15-16, 5 games last year, got his first NHL assist, and then he's played in 1 game this year, believe it or not, with the Wild. I barely remember that, and he had 4 penalty in that game. Berkey's been doing a lot of the little things that don't show up in the scorecard down there in Iowa, so they've been very impressed with him, along with Nick Steeler. People just rave about Nick Steeler down there, of course, the former Gopher. Talk about him in a second. Christoph Berchi, though, 6th round pick in 2012. I talk about him on occasion. He is from Switzerland. He's from Switzerland, Fritzburg, Switzerland. And again, he's been solid. Of course, Soucy, we already talked about him. But yeah, Nick Steeler, he's already 24 years old, but again, a bruising defense. And 5th round pick in 2011. Again, it's that left shot. Bummer, Otherwise, he might have been called up by now because the Wild need that kind of a guy. They really need that kind of guy. Brendan Mennel, more of a Spurgeon type of guy. He even models his game after him. So that's where the excitement comes in with Brendan Mennel. One day, just might make it to the Wild. Another guy, though, who I think has a fantastic chance of being on the Wild at one point, and he better be, because I think he'd be a disappointing draft pick if not, frankly. 2014, 80th overall pick, 3rd round. I talk about him almost every show now. Luis Bellipedio, out of Skokie, Illinois, of course. Miami, Ohio University. He gets points every week. 15 points on the season, 10 assists. He's the captain of the team. He's the leading scorer of his team. He's had a breakout year over there. Only a couple more points, and he'll have his career high already. And he has just been outstanding for Miami, Ohio, and the NCHC, a conference the Gophers could have been in still, or could have been in if we didn't move to the Big Ten. Of course, WCHA is basically dead and gone, done and dusted, as they say in Australia, which is really sad. Like everybody either went to the Big Ten or NCHC, and now the WCHA is a bunch of just teams you don't think of very much. Also, Belpedio had been double-digit minuses. Well, of course, his freshman year, he was outstanding, 15 points, and that's what helped him get drafted back in 14. Well, yeah, that was right before he got drafted. He had a career year there. His freshman year dropped off a bit, was kind of quiet, and he missed significant time last year with injury. So who knows what his numbers might have been last year if not for the injury. But he's already at 15 points, him being Belpedio. He's a +3 on the season. And the good news with him, he is a right shot. Let that sink in. Luis Belpedio is a right shot. And you know how, again, Dumba and Spurgeon are right shots. So you look at those two guys. Those guys, as long as the Wild don't trade either one of them away at any point soon, particularly Dumba, you never know, they might trade him. As much as you might think of Ryan Murphy, and of course Nate Prosser, he's what he is. He's the 7th defenseman generally, maybe 6th or 7th defenseman, that kind of guy. And there's nothing wrong with keeping him around as long as possible because, he's not killing you in the salary cap. And if he's a steady, solid guy who can just be there to help you out when need be and not complain about his role, not be a bitch in the locker room, that type of thing, well, maybe that right shot defenseman is Luis Belpedio coming up in the next year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is, maximum, I think. That could be the guy. He's got a bit of Spurgeon in him as well. He's a shorter guy who can provide offense, but he's also a solid defense, and he's a two-way guy, and he made some spectacular saves. He made a spectacular save just like Ryan Murphy at one point, not too long ago, a few months ago. Just awesome play by Luis Belpedio down the stretch. He's been capable of making great defensive plays and, of course, setting other players up. Belpedio, to me, yeah, he's probably that guy, I think. Again, because you're filled with left shot defensemen. Belpedio, right shot. So, again, let's keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as you go forward into the future here. Alex Tuck's still at 10 points for the Knights, but, of course, that's old news. Jack Sadek has not been scoring, but, he's solid out there. Again, I compare him to kind of like a Scandella. Solid guy who can provide offense when needed. He's capable of it, but they generally have him stay back because Lundgren is the offensive guy on the top pairing for the Golden Gophers. Jack Sadek of the Gophers, 7th round pick, 2015. Always been happy with him. Jordan Greenway's quieted down in his scoring. He finally got an assist again. It's been real quiet. He's at 11 points now for the Boston University club there. 16 games for him, 7 assists. More of a playmaking power forward than a goal-scoring power forward. So, again, keep note of that. So, the Wild have been filled with playmakers over the years. Mr. Where did he go? Dmitry Sokolov. Sudbury Wolves, of course. He'd missed some time, and then he'd been quiet, and then he had a multi-point game last night. So good on him. 31 points now, 15 goals for OHL there. Ladnia, the most recent guy. Erie Otters, also OHL. He continues to provide a lot of offense for the Erie Otters. I love that name. 30 points, 15 goals, 15 assists on the season in the 27 games he has played thus far. He continues. Kaapo Kaukonen keeping his goals against average under 2 still over there in Finland. Gotta love what Kaukonen brings, and I think he will be on the Wild one day. Absolutely. So I think that's pretty much about it for what I want to cover right now with prospects. Most of the other guys, they're either in the ECHL or such. Just here's another thing to think about, though. Dylan Labe, so he was a 4th round pick the same year as Carson Soucy. And he's in the ACHL, and he's got as many points as Carson Soucy in the ECHL. So again, give that some thought at how Carson Soucy is a better pick than Dylan Labe. You could go on with that forever. Of course, the year Gustav Olsson was taken, the Wild missed out on Mr. Jake Gensel. That's heartbreaking and extremely frustrating. But again, that's just the way it goes. You can't. Hindsight is 20/20. But Gustav Olofsson does show some promise, though, out there defensively. He gets in the right spot, and he's able to move the puck forward at times as well. So hopefully Gustav Olofsson can continue to develop. So far, only 1 assist in the 16 games he has been out there. But, he's had some not-so-good moments. He's had some okay moments. Still developing, luckily, and I think the Wild have some faith in him. And Mr. Chuck Fletcher did mention that the whole move of getting rid of Cal Quincy was about giving Mike Riley and Gustav Olofsson a chance now. This is their time. This is their time to prove themselves. And if not, well, Ryan Murphy, obviously, he's here for now until Spurgeon comes. And then somebody's going to get sent down. Maybe Olofsson, maybe Riley, or Murphy. And then you got Louis Belpedio on his way up at some point. I got to think by the end of this season, Louis Belpedio, depending on how well Miami does, if they get into the tournament, NCAA tournament, and how far they get, if they get there, Belpedio will be on the Iowa Wild immediately at that point. I got to think. If the Wild don't sign him, shame on them. But no, they will. And Louis Belpedio will be on Iowa starting out. And then it's going to get very interesting very quickly, I think. Maybe as soon as next year, Louis Belpedio will make his NHL debut. And then things get extremely interesting there. As the Wild, there is hope. That's the good news. There is hope in the system. It's not quite as dry as some may have thought. I remember last year with Belpedio's injury, it felt really dire. And of course, you already had Folane, which is kind of sad when you look back at that. But again, Folane is boring. That's the thing. Belpedio Might be a bit more exciting than Folin. Prosser's boring, yes, but again, he doesn't get you killed, where Quincy was boring and he sucked. Olafson so far has been boring, and he's okay. Mike Riley, sometimes you're starting to see a little bit of that offensive ability and less of getting you killed, hopefully. He's a little bit of a Mad Dumba, I'd say, but lesser version of both sides of things. Hopefully less version on the mistakes, too. Okay, well, somebody's probably going to get traded at some point, and hopefully not again for another horrible trade like the Buffalo one. That one's bugging me, and it's bugging everybody right now. The Buffalo Sabres trade, because again, you signed Foligno for about $3 million a year for the next 3 years. What's the point? You could have got some type of halfway decent defenseman for that, or maybe a better forward for that. I mean, Brunette didn't even make $2 million a year years ago. So, sheesh. That's just, you let that sink in. When Brunette was a 50-point guy. I don't think Foligno's ever going to get 50 points. I don't think Tyler Ennis is ever going to get 50 points. And he's making almost $5 million a year is Tyler Ennis. So, again, that's stuff to think about. Let's look at the Twitter account quickly, at Brave the Wild, if humanly possible. And as we wait for that to load, I'll mention the phone lines, 209-736-7877, 209-736-7877. It is a voicemail. Do treat it as such. Mention you're calling in for Brave the Wild. Do your statement, shout-out, comment, question, and opine. If you could, it would be greatly appreciated. And, of course, there's the Call Now button on the Facebook page, which we'll talk about in a second. Call Now button on there, which goes through the phone line through Facebook Messenger, so you could be from anywhere in the world or get through and do the same thing. Head coach Mike Riley fired in Nebraska. That's just funny. Mike Riley, wait, what's going on? No, just seeing something pop up. Sorry, that's funny. Mike Riley, wait a minute. No, Wild, yeah, duh. But no, that's how you get in through the Facebook Messenger that way, through the Facebook page, the Wild Facebook page. Of course, that's going to be in the show description, how to get to the Facebook page, and I'll mention it in a second. There is the final route is the audio submission route. Use the free voice recording app on your smart device. Treat it like a phone call and save it and email it to paladinolive@yahoo.com, paladinolive@yahoo.com. Again, that will also be in the show description for this episode of Brave the Wild. I want to thank Hockey Podcast for retweeting the show. Thank you very much. Always at NHL Podcast, at NHL Podcast. I believe Vince Germano retweeted it as well. I don't know where that went, though. I know he did, because I always see it happen. So I'll mention it anyway. Thank you, Vince Germano, for retweeting the show, because I know he did. For some reason, it just doesn't show up in here sometimes. And it's kind of weird and confusing. Yet it does show the NHL one. Go figure. There it is. Yep, he did. Thank you, Vince. I really appreciate you, brother. Out of Australia. We'll also hear from a guy from Australia, Daniel Allen, here in a second. Or is it Benny Allen, Daniel Allen? Yeah. It's like a back and forth. It's the same guy. There was some bit at a wedding, I believe he mentioned. So, Facebook.com/Brave the Wild is the Facebook page. And it was loading and it went away on me. Don't you just love when that happens? Well, please do give a follow to that page. I was talking, I showed the Louis Belpedio, and they talked about Kyle Quincy placed on waivers. So, here's where the couple replies come where I was talking about the Wild once again claimed Nate Prosser off waivers to be the right shot defenseman. Benny Allen says, what is the bloody fascination with him? And I understand, and it's like we knew it was going to happen too. Yep, me and Mr. Daniel Allen were talking about that. Here it is. Yep, Benny Allen was saying, oh, please don't pick up Prosser. And I was saying, I agree, but that's probably where they'll wind up. It's like we want Soucy, but the problem is, again, the left, right. That's the reason. That's why things happened the way they did. It's not because necessarily guys aren't thinking over the Minnesota Wild. It's just the positional situation. And I posted how Jared Spurgeon will miss at least 2 more weeks with the groin injury as of yesterday. Benny Allen says, and Benny Allen is out of Australia. He says, thought Murphy had a good game, and I agree big time. And he had an even better game against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Murphy was solid against the Winnipeg Jets, which sounds funny, as awful as that game was. He was solid in that game. He didn't do anything wrong in that one. It was some of the forwards, of course, the Matt Collins, that didn't help. The fourth line sucked. They had 3 goals given up in that game. Luckily, they managed to score one. I couldn't believe it. Kurt Back says, WTF. He couldn't believe it. Again, out of White Bear Lake. I kept getting him mixed up with Lakeville. I don't know why. Mark Carlson out of Iowa says not good. Evan out of, I'm not sure where he's from, but interesting font there. He says, yikes, he's our best player. I agree with that. Justin Ryan back says, need to get the young guys to pick it up and Murphy to continue off of last game. And Murphy was awesome. I was saying how it was encouraging, and I hope it continues. I'll be talking about some exciting guys in the system. Justin Ryan back says, Soucy and Seeler would be interesting to get looks from, even Menel. And yes, I can't wait to see any one of them on this club. I was telling him how, I'm waiting for that day. And again, I was saying how it's the whole left shot versus right shot thing, but Menel is a right shot. So maybe Brendan Menel will get on at some point. It's going to be between guys like, and it depends on how much the Wild like Matt Dumba, how much they want to keep him around. Are the Wild going to trade Matt Dumba? Maybe you'll see Menel and Belpedio up here. Though, of course, all three of your right shot defensive would be shorter guys, though. So that's one thing to think about. When you sit down and think of it, they'll all be very similar. So that's the one situation. I wish one of those right shot defensemen was a bigger guy, because even Ryan Murphy is only, 5'11", right? 5'11", 185. It's just medium size. He's not that big. Like you got Steelers, 6'2", big, bulky, and then, of course, Mr. Soucy was like 6'4". He's a beast. So that's a guy you need to have. You need to have that anchor. 6'4", 210 in Carson Soucy. But again, left shot. So maybe you make up for the shorter guy if you get Carson Soucy up here. But that means maybe at some point you trade away the Goose, or you send the Goose down to Iowa. If Soucy's better than the Goose, Gustav Olofsson, then you make that damn move. So that's the situation there. Soucy versus Olofsson, I think, right now. As far as I'm concerned, Soucy versus Olofsson. Olofsson's a taller guy, too, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of bulk and size out of the Goose at this stage. So that's something to sit down and think about as well. So there you go there, yes. So that should wrap things up. I already mentioned the phone lines and such. Please write a positive rating if you could, a positive review on iTunes or Stitcher if you could. I'd give you a huge shout out and a thank you on the air. It would be greatly appreciated. Please tell your friends about the show. The numbers have been getting better of late, and I really appreciate it. And whoever's been telling their friends, thank you. And keep interacting. Guys like Justin and Evan and, of course, Mark Carlson, Kurt, and Benny Allen. You guys, thank you. Thank you very much for taking some time to post on the page and join the show. Don't be afraid to call in at some point either, if you could. Any one of you, don't be afraid to call in. You're more than welcome to do so. Remember, it doesn't matter if you're international or not. There's the call now button and all that. And, of course, I already mentioned everything, including the email address, which will be in the show description. You can copy and paste that. So this should wrap up this episode. I want to thank you again, and hopefully the Wild can have a winning week. Get this positive momentum in a different direction here. Or, keep the positive momentum going is what I'm trying to say, and get things away from how awful things were. 13 goals with St. Louis and Winnipeg. Let's put that in the past and hope this defensive group can step up and continue what they're doing, and the forwards can play a little smarter than they did for quite a while there, even before the St. Louis game last week. So thanks again. We'll talk to you in a week.